Well, here we are in part two of our presentation, and what I want to do here is do a performative analysis. I'm showing you bass parts to some classic wind ensemble pieces, and we'll be listening to them and going over them from a player's point of view. So Holst First Suite in E flat, Grainger's Lincolnshire Posy, and Bernstein's on the Waterfront. So here we are with First Suite for military band in E flat. This was composed in 1909. This is before the planets. However, it wasn't published till 1921. It is the classic of wind band music. The Chaconne theme is very beautiful and is first articulated in octave basses and euphoniums and contrabass clarinet and such. Very exquisite thing. If you look at the score, you can just see the symmetry and beauty of the phrase. It introduces these 15 theme and variations 15 times it goes on. Now, I want to play this for you and go over it, and in looking for a recording, I realized that I actually had quite a significant recording that we could look at, in that I have this from 1971. This is the Ithaca College alumni band and being conducted by Walter Beeler in his final concert. Beeler was a very distinguished musician in the United States and band leader with the Ithaca College group from the 1932 to 1960s, and then again in the very early 70s, which is where I encountered him. And Ithaca College has had a band there for almost 100 years. It'll be 100 years next year, from 1922 with Patrick Conway, when he started a band school at Ithaca College. So I digress, as I can do, and let's look at this music. So here we have the First Suite in E flat, Chaconne. This opening here, the first breath of the Anacrusis, is a big moment, sound out of silence at a pianissimo dynamic. The way things begin is the way they want to continue, and the way this is stated is the way it then goes through these different variations. So let's have a listen, and I'll talk through it along the way and show you what's going on. So this piece is actually a tutorial in how to play tuba. Everything you need to know is found in these three movements. That's probably true for the entire band. It is such a well-structured and organized piece and well-crafted wind music. The phrasing all speaks of windiness. And here we are, mezzo forte. The foundation and structure under which other things can take place. Now even bigger. And here we have stop, action, motion, providing a foundation for the woodwinds do their decorations. And now, walking bass. So yes, there's a lot that is taught in this piece if you're working with young musicians. And for experienced musicians, this is a piece that returns again and again. And we play it often. It's probably the most played concert band piece that we know of. Now a lovely part coming up here at D, a rolling bass in 3 that motivates very interesting variation upon the theme. As we come down through these moody kind of woodwinds to the brass. Interval is crucial in tuba playing. The space we are making as we move along sets up the harmonic series for everything above us. And all this octave playing to the drone. B-flat drone on the dominant, setting up a lot of expectation. And a long crescendo. Now this takes a lot of wind, and I have the habit of circular breathing to bring this off. And here we go. Back in the dominant. And tonic. Off-beat drone on the beat. And the famous Holst chord. Yes, these off-beat drones. We'll talk about this some more in this piece. It's crucial to know exactly how that first note is going to sound. It needs to be a powder puff of a note. Especially when taking attacca, as some conductors do, directly into the second movement. And here we get to do it again. So we have this driving kind of mechanical force, this motivation, like a train, that we have in Holst's music. And piano. Oh, this is soft dynamic. So there can be talk amongst people about how the bass doesn't play a lot in some places, particularly in orchestra music, and that we're slacking off. But really, we need to listen very deeply and carefully to what's going on, because we have to be able to seamlessly come back in. Quite often, bass is about presence and feeling as much as sound. So the melodic motion dictates this phrase coming out. And how to set that down without interrupting anything. And then support. Boom. Boom, boom. We know from studies that rhythm is perceived in the bass more than in the treble. And so that's why it's very important to be in time as a bass player. The little deviations make a big difference. And then here we want real steadiness. Again, that mechanical locomotion type of motion. Remember, this is the Industrial Revolution here and the aftermath of the Edwardian period. This steady clock-like drive being turned into music and disappearing into the distance. So I draw your attention to how Mr. Beeler brought the band back into this very stable, steady tempo. There's various times through this movement you can feel that the band would take off if he let them, and he keeps it right in place. This kind of old school imperial military band playing. This is, of course, the tradition that it comes out of the British imperial bands that have been all around the world by this time. And this was a style. This was a sound. This is a sound. This is a style. And here another walking bass. It must be phrased. This can't be played like a monotone. It has to be phrased as we move along to follow what's going on with the woodwinds. You have to excuse hearing my breathing, I'm afraid. It's a vicarious thing, and I breathe where I think I should. The embedded nature of instrumentality. Yes, well, as I was saying towards the end there, and I decided to let it play, we have a really interesting relationship, instrumentalists, with our instruments and the whole embodiment of trying to play. So watching my music, listening to it, even though I'm trying to talk to you folk, I'm right back there in it again. And here, and what happens along the way, I find that I now play in the Queensland Wind Orchestra, and we'll be using excerpts from live concert performances of some of the music that I want to show to you from the Queensland Wind Orchestra. And this is an auditioned adult community band. They want people to be AMEB grade 7 standard or its equivalent. It was founded in 2004. It is an amazing collection of professionals in all kinds of walks of life who also continue to play their instruments, as well as a lot of musicians. And it's fantastic. I feel very privileged to be a part of this group. I joined this group in 2013, played their final concert of the season after auditioning, and what was on the program but the first suite in E flat. It just says it had been 50 years before with Walter Beeler. So we're going to look at Percy Grainger's Lincolnshire Posy. There's so much that can be said about this piece, and a lot has been. It's the ultimate classic in wind music. Grainger was collecting folk music, and he chose 6 folk songs to then turn into symphonic instrumental music. using the songs in their strophic forms and all, but in the Grainger touch with polyrhythmical and polytonal freeform meter and the rest of it, it is definitely wind music. Certainly brings forth Jacob's idea of wind and song, because it's really vocal music. It can easily be vocal music, and we play it like vocal music. So I'm going to play one selection for you from this wonderful piece, and this is the third movement, Rufford Park Poachers. A very complex piece of music, and it's a sad story about some poachers who are in the King's Forest and get caught, and there's consequences for that. So the part we're here is a very large bass song in octaves with all kinds of contrary things going on in a polytonal kind of way. It has interesting resolutions to the harmonic structure. It's best if I just play it. I shouldn't talk about this music, but have a listen now to this part of Rufford Park Ranger. So as you hear, it's broad and windy, like you're on top of a hill in a gale. And now, a syncopated drone on G1, G2. Key change. An excursion in D flat. And notice the dynamics. Forte to piano, fortissimo, swells. This is music that one has to be prepared for. It's an endurance piece. Yes, Rufford Park Poachers. So the next thing I want to go on to is a transcription, as it happens. It's Leonard Bernstein. It's On the Waterfront. An exceptional piece of music. It was a film score for a 1954 film by Eliza Kazan. It was the first movie that Marlon Brando was ever seen in. It won numerous Academy Awards, but Bernstein lost out to a whistled theme in a World War II movie called The High and the Mighty. He wasn't happy with his Hollywood experience, and so afterwards he turned it pretty much immediately into a symphonic suite that was first for orchestra and now has been transcribed here. An amazing transcription. And again, I think it's just best to talk about this music rather than, to play this music rather than just talk about it. So, On the Waterfront is a story of love and conflict and loyalty and contrasting ideals, and there's passages of great tenderness and beauty in it. But overall, it has a very dramatic, percussion-driven, brutalistic brass playing that depicts street violence and mobster and unionist contention and conflict with fortissimo to triple forte dynamic intervals and information and rhythmic displacement. In this section, I believe that what we're doing here and what I imagine, this is a battle on the streets, and these are war tubas, these are war horns, and I'd note that when they come in there at 160 with that ba-ba-ba-dee, we've also on top of it, 3 octaves above, got the E flat clarinet and the piccolo screaming the same thing. So we get this very primitive kind of dangerous kind of music. So I'll draw your attention to that and play it for you now. Yeah, so there we are. Trying to move on quickly here so I don't run out of time. Very soon after this, we have this marvelous section of contrasting soft sounds where we get this drone syncopation, a thing that I like to refer to as a wind-driven bell of sustaining. It's a the syncopation creates a bell sound of swinging back and forth, and the dynamic shape from mezzo forte to fortissimo, and then right back down to piano. It's about endurance and wind flow, and again, an opportunity to use circular breathing. So first we have this lonely saxophone, this urban wail. And then at 2:06, you'll hear the woodwinds enter, setting the meter, then with harp and trumpet, muted trumpet to the drone. Now again, this octave displacement in the tuba is to create even more sonority and resonance without force, just fullness and growing in fullness, which by itself conveys the message. And then take a crescendo and coming down. And the saxophone re-enters. So, in another excerpt here, we have what I call the drone of hope. This is a very long crescendo, 38 bars. And I'll point out that at 318, the tuba becomes divided. Rather than in the octaves we've been doing now, we have a whole step interval between two tubas, creating this resolution of C1, D, C2, D2, A1, with a solo at 325. Very legato solo, bringing us down into this G, F, A, G passing tone to F drone that concludes this section. This music here, though it in the film occurs at the very end, and it is a very dramatic moment of the hero basically picking himself up off the pavement and walking towards a symbolic freedom. So there's this halting kind of transitions like we just had to D and then down to G again from the C. This will happen again at 298. Very simple, so organic. And all along with this wind-driven bell on the offbeat, here we are, Do. New tonal center all of a sudden. More hope as we rise here from G to D. And this bell tolling. It's kind of an eternal, timeless, out of time sound. And yes, now A. It's possible. This again, soaring melodies, while meanwhile a bass is more felt than perceived by the listener, but holding up the structure of this anthem that is now in question. A whole step, B flat and C, B natural and C, excuse me. Here, a half step. An attempt at resolution, and a tuba solo coming up, taking us down with a strange passing tone into a new reality, a new sound world altogether than before. With 3 tones. So, as you can see, one can get very involved in their bass parts, and I certainly do, and I love this music, and I hope I've given something to you here to think about. Here's some links and some references to materials, and you're welcome to do a screenshot of that if you want, have it if you watch this again. Here's my details. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to be able to try and communicate in this fashion, and while we can't meet at the conference, you could email if you like and ask any questions or strange ideas. So thank you very much, and that's it for me.